PLS is an educational research organization that primarily focuses on the concept of learning how to learn and believes in promoting learning in all its various facets and its diverse forms. It develops curricula that are holistic, focusing on 5 areas of development: cerebral, emotional, physical, social, and spiritual. It also specializes in the professional development of educators who can use such curricula to encourage each learner to actualize their potential. Pallavan Learning Systems conducts research, seminars, and conferences for the creation and dissemination of new knowledge so that what it does remains current and relevant to the rapidly changing times. Ritinjali is an organization founded on the basis of respect for life, work and dignity, empowerment through holistic education and skilling, and building community capacity and collective processes towards an inclusive society. Since 1995, Ritinjali has worked with marginalized groups, slum dwellers, jail inmates, poverty-stricken individuals, victims of war and natural disasters, through educational and development-related endeavors. The Center for Escalation of Peace, or CEP, seeks to create platforms and establish programs that lead to the free exchange of ideas across borders, with a distinct focus on empowering young minds. CP takes the view that peace does not refer to merely the absence of war. Peace cannot be taken for granted or merely sustained. Instead, peace needs to be escalated through various strategies and platforms. In an era where digital content is more accessible than ever, the way we engage with reading is evolving. Technology has created new opportunities to make reading more interactive, inclusive, and widely available, yet it also poses challenges: declining attention spans, screen fatigue, and the struggle to balance digital and traditional literacy. So, how do we keep the joy of reading alive in a tech-driven world? How can educators, parents, and institutions adapt their strategies to inspire love for books among today's readers? To explore these crucial questions, we have an incredible panel with us today. Paro Anand is an award-winning author and the recipient of the Sahitya Akademi Bal Puraskar. She has led the National Centre for Children's Literature and worked extensively with children in conflict zones. Through her writing, global talks, and podcasts, Literature in Action, she champions children's literature. Tashi Chodran, an 11th grade student of Druk Gyalpo's Institute, Bhutan, is passionate about astronomy, physics, and technology. She is a dedicated reader. Tashi enjoys dystopian and science fiction, appreciating both print and digital books for their accessibility and diversity. Meenakshi Thakur is a publishing expert specializing in Indian languages and translations. She has led Hindi and translation imprints at HarperCollins India, working with renowned authors like Gulzar and Perumal Murugan. Now at Westland Books, she heads a multilingual publishing program across 9 Indian languages. Each of them brings a unique perspective on how reading is changing in the digital age. So let's begin our discussion today with a fundamental question. How has digital technology transformed the way we read? And what does that mean for the future of reading? Satashi, I'd like to direct this question first at you because you represent today's readers. So I would love your perspective on this to begin with.
Thank you very much for this question. I would like to begin by stating that in this digital era, where like our everyday activities include technology, reading is not an exception to being influenced by technology. Like digital technology has revolutionized reading habits in many ways. With now the introduction of ebooks and online reading apps and platforms, we are able to access books more conveniently by having a vast library on our phone without having to worry about carrying a physical copy around and worry about its storage. And these platforms, not only do they help you to access a wide variety of and range of a library of books, they also provide you with personalized recommendations, and many are also driven by AI, which can help engage a reader and learn about their own about their interests and help expand on it. As like from my personal experiences, reading digitally is very not only convenient but can also be very informative, as with these with many like interactive tools. Like you can easily access a glossary or a dictionary if you happen to stumble upon something which you are unsure of or curious of, which I believe, and you can also keep tabs on them, which I believe really can help in our comprehension and retention of knowledge. However, as we all know, reading on a digital device, like we are more prone to being distractions, and we are more prone to lose focus on of our reading with notifications from social media and other apps. This can be very distracting, and it can allow, like as a reader, it hampers our focus and our comprehension, as we tend to easily get diverted into these other aspects. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tashi. That was most insightful, especially the digital reading aspect of it, because some of us are still old school and tend to stick to hardbacks. So coming to you, Paro, you've been prolifically writing for like the last 4 decades, I think. And I would love to have your perspective on this. How, when you are writing with keeping the reader in mind and keeping the fact that technology is evolving in such a fast-paced way and the way we are reading today has changed so much, how are you as an author changing to match the times?
Yes, certainly I have had to adapt my way of writing. I'm often asked, do you write on a laptop or do you write by pen? And it doesn't matter. I write from the heart, I write from the head, I write from the gut. And the other, it's just a tool. But yes, I'm finding that a lot of non-readers, how do you engage a non-reader into reading? And certainly digital is a great way to go for that, because you can kind of enhance the reading experience. But also that just the realization that came to me that one size doesn't fit all. So you need a plethora of subjects, styles, um, word lengths, illustrations, and all of that. You just need to have such a mixed bag so that anybody and everybody can find that one book. This comes from my personal journey as a reader. I wasn't a good reader. Um, as a child, I didn't enjoy reading. Uh, but my home was filled with books and open access to any kind of book. Um, it was, to me, a waste of time that hour when we, as a family, sat down to read. I used to hate that time. But it was when just picked out from off the bookshelf, a book that wasn't meant for children, but it was meant for me. And that was it. It just hooked me, and that was the bait. So I think, um, Tashi loves dystopian reading. I don't. What was it about Harry Potter that struck a chord with so many people across countries, continents, age groups, backgrounds, and all of it, was that there was something in it for everyone, something that struck a chord. And I think that is the key, striking the chord. It doesn't matter digital or hard copy or anything.
Thank you, Paro. That was most insightful. And I would like to now come to Minakshi, because Minakshi has been in the publishing business, the book publishing business for the last over 20 years. And Minakshi, I'd like to ask you, as a publisher, how are things evolving? How are you adapting to this technology that's coming in? Readers are changing, the way they engage with books. How is publishing handling this huge change?
Hi, thank you, Sunana, for having me. Um, so when ebooks arrived in India, we were all excited, but also slightly concerned that the sales of ebooks would take over the sales of publishing physical books, which didn't quite happen. That is nowhere near the numbers of physical books in India. Though that is an easy alternative, an interesting alternative for people who don't want to carry hardbacks, like that time is has sort of passed, and people who collect books for their shelves, or who hold paper a hardback dear, would definitely go for hardbacks. For instance, like nonfiction, serious nonfiction would work in a in hardback format, but most people reading fiction go for paperback. So that has sort of changed. We're doing more paperback than hardback. Ebook sales, again, not really comparable, but there is so much, there are such interesting programs on Kindle. A lot of it is free for instance, for Kindle Unlimited. So that gives you a whole range of, especially students. It is a great advantage for them to get to read so many books for free, especially classics or self-development or business books. So that one can't deny. And then audiobooks arrived, and that is sort of picking up now, and especially not just for young people or students, but I noticed that the elderly, they find it very easy to listen to audiobooks. And then podcasts are, you can call it, it's an offshoot, and it's an interesting alternative to listen to books or conversations about books, which is very important now. Um, As a traditional trade publisher, I would say these three formats are available to us. And we're constantly worried that there aren't enough readers, but there are, like, near almost everybody. Every young person I meet wants to be a writer because we get so many manuscripts every day. Um, and I just feel like they should go back and read so much more before they find a voice of their own. Otherwise, they will be writing more of what already exists, looking to the West or looking to Southeast Asia. That's also happening now. But the other interesting part of this business now is, um, say, our parent company is called Pratilipi, which is India's largest storytelling platform. Over 2 lakh writers are writing on it in 12 Indian languages. They write series, like they write in a series format, um, and the longer they are, the better they perform on the app. So a 90 episode series would do better than a 50 episode series, which means that people want to read. They read the first 5 episodes for free, and then to unlock the sixth, they have to take a subscription. That's one model, which is always discounted at 99 rupees, and for that 99 rupees you get to read so much in your own language, which was also a worry that publishers had, say, 10 years ago. When we started publishing in Hindi, it was a huge struggle to sell Hindi books in the big cities, and the smaller cities had fewer and fewer stores time as more time passed. But so uh, they are getting to read in their languages, so there is definitely a revival of interest in books in their own languages, which also shows in the massive growth of news channels, 24/7 news channels in the languages, not English. English is far behind. But look at Aaj Tak, for instance, look at Sun TV. They're hugely successful because there's an active engagement with languages, which is true of YouTube as well. Indians are the largest, India's the largest user base of YouTube, they're saying, because of the languages. So it's not just, my experience is not just limited to what's happening in English publishing. And I'm really like, it's astounding the numbers that Pratilipi throws up every quarter. So people are reading there, then they are writing. This is totally user generated. So writers, you, me, anybody can write. They're writing in the popular genres: crime, horror, family drama, stories about witchcraft. Each language likes a different genre, is what we've realized. Like in Bengal, the witchcraft stories do very well. In the Hindi belt, contract marriage stories do very well. It's very interesting, very curious. So, and then from there, what Pratilipi has done is they've taken the top stories from all the languages and converted them into audiobooks on an app called Pratilipi FM. And from there, the stories that are doing very well on Pratilipi FM, they turn them into comics, and they've become the largest producer of digital comics in India. So people are reading, they're reading in various formats. I won't say that the trade publishing world is not growing. Clearly, it is growing, which is why smaller independent publishers also manage to survive. But in Southeast Asia, one last thing I would like to say. The web novels are all the rage. And there's a huge amount of, like huge volumes, they're being churned out in large numbers.
So basically, books are more accessible in these multiple formats. And I was also reading somewhere how audiobooks, like people buy books in multiple formats. Like they'll buy the audiobook, they'll buy the paperback of the same book, and they enjoy both. And as lifestyles change, people just want to consume, say, audiobooks while there's a long commute or anything which requires them to sit in a place where they're confined, or maybe while driving, or so I think this, as what you were saying, the app that Pratilipi is coming up with has made books a lot more accessible and a lot more affordable to master readers.
I just
Now,
wanted to jump in, Sunaina, very briefly on Meenakshi's point of, the number of people writing in, and as an editor, you wish they would read a lot. I think there's a lot of unscrupulous companies who have started encouraging children to write, and then they publish books. Whenever I go to schools now, which is quite often, children and teachers are coming and saying, this child has already published his 8th book, and can you help to launch his 10th book and all? And they are like in class 4 and things like that. Obviously not readers, but it's a way into the parents' pockets, and that's all it is. It is not writing, and it is not reading. And I think a word of caution on that.
that's really unfortunate, because the whole process of writing and reading should be something straight from the heart. Coming back to technology, so I have this next question for you is, from your experience, what are the biggest challenges and opportunities in encouraging a love for reading in today's tech-driven world? So Paro, I'll ask the question to you first.
Okay. So what are the opportunities? Huge. And I've been talking to quite a few people, let's say from Pratham. And first of all, disability. There are a lot of people in the disability sector who do not have the ability to handle a physical book, but they are able to read a soft copy. And I think that is huge and hasn't been recognized. Then the last mile access to those who are underserved, whether it's languages or geographically or economically in whatever way. Um, so Storyweaver, which puts thousands of books, largely picture books, in hundreds of languages, and it's open access, free access. Now, of course, that begs the question, you're talking about underserved people, where do they have internet? So there are downloadable formats where teachers are actually downloading material and then taking it back to the classrooms, which a lot of them are digitally enabled, even if they are so I think that's a huge is digital infrastructure for knowledge sharing. And they have energized textbooks, which I hope convert to non-textbooks as well, meaning that they are interactive, integratable, and you can participate in that book as well.
And Paro, what would you say are the challenges?
Concentration, A. As Tashi said, that the notifications are coming in. There's a game you can easily get to. Himanshu Giri of Pratham uh, had said a very interesting thing. He said, we used to travel. Whenever you're traveling, you'd carry 2 books with you and read those 2 books. Now you can be carrying the books. The person who was carrying the 2 books would have read the 2 books. The person who would have been carrying 15,000 books may not even have read one fully, cover to cover. The challenges are also that there's something so, I'm talking largely of children's literature because that's my wheelhouse. That act of getting into your bed and cuddling down with a book, which you cannot do with a device. That to me, it's irreplaceable with anything else. The challenges, of course, are also, as studies have found, that the depth of comprehension, the depth of understanding are greatly impacted where it's digital. The speed of reading may be very, very much faster on digital platforms, but the deep dive into what you've read is much better when it's a physical format. So somehow that balance, or where you need that deep dive, I think nothing can actually replace the physical.
I completely understand what you're saying. The joy for me is holding a book, fresh book, the way it smells, the way, and then building your library, physical library. I'm not talking about an e-library, but a physical library has its own sense of joy. Thank you, Paro. Tashi, I'd like to now direct the same question at you from your perspective.
Yes, thank you. From my perspective as a student, I think one of the biggest challenges I would see is like how many of us excuse me, we perceive like reading more of an obligation rather than a passion. Like we feel that we have to be reading, not that we want to be reading, which can really, I guess, not really ruin the experience, but it kind of kills the joy of reading when you believe that you are forced to be a thing. And as like technology is integrated into our like daily lives, like our attention span, especially the younger generation, is technology has a significant impact on how our attention span deteriorates. And that while reading, our attention span is very crucial while reading, I believe. And that is another significant challenge I see. And as well, like we tend to turn to now, rather than like analyzing and comprehending text, we tend to turn to technology for like simpler answers, faster answers, which I believe can really also poses like a significant challenge while trying to encourage a love for reading, as why like many people believe it would be simpler and easier just to get the answers outright and get the experience outright rather than get like delving into the experience of like reading itself. And as for opportunities, like how Miss Paro and Ma'am Minakshi have mentioned before, like through Pratilipi, like the literature app, not only are they able to like cater to the audience's need of like publishing books in different formats and in different languages. I believe like such, and how reading in a soft copy through like through digital means can also really help people with disabilities. Like I believe technology can really present opportunities in reading in these ways, in such ways that we are able to like cater to the audience's needs, which makes reading more accessible, as many people cannot. I am in many disadvantages societies, I'm sure, like having access to a library, or uh, having access to a physical book, or being able to store it may be very difficult. So I believe that technology can really help in the front in solving these issues that we see.
So,
Thank you.
Tashi, my question to you is, which is your preferred way of reading? Is it an ebook or is it a physical book? What is it that you tend to read on more?
Uh, Although I have grown up reading physical books and I really enjoy the tactile experience of reading on a physical book, I through my personal experience, I enjoy reading on digital ebooks more, as we are able to not only have like a vast collection, but also like through what I have read, I get recommendations on which cater to my interests, which from which I'm able to discover new books. And I can also easily keep tabs and highlights and bookmarks on many pages from which I can write my remarks down. And sometimes I like to look through them, and also it is like searching like on I believe it is like way more enjoyable for me reading on a digital platform. But though that is just my preference.
Thanks, Tashi. Coming to you, Meenakshi, from a publisher's perspective, what do you think are the challenges and opportunities when it comes to encouraging a love for reading?
You know, we are reading has become just one of the many things kids do these days. I mean, that was all we had while growing up. So that's the big difference now. And we are up against OTT platforms and Instagram and whatnot. So our challenge is to, I think the biggest thing that the first thing that we should do is to catch them young and to create, to support the publishers should come together and support community library projects that will play a large role in this, like Paro also talked about it. And to make books, there are so many little libraries coming up in remote places in India. And so I think publishers should think about that and support them so that reading is democratized a little bit. It goes everywhere and not just to kids who enter retail chains. The other thing is to encourage our bookstores to reinvent themselves a little bit. As in, if you enter a crossword or any other retail chain, the first thing you spot is stationery and then toys, and then the books are right at the back and not curated well at all. That's a big block that we face all the time because the shop floor guy knows nothing about what he's selling. He could be selling soaps, he could be selling mixer grinders, and books might seem to them like any other product. So that unless that changes, it's very difficult for publishers to sell through offline channels. Independent, there are a few independent booksellers who are doing a good job. They still have like dedicated customers, for instance, Midland in Delhi. So say 3 generations have been going to them, and they will say, I want this book. It's not there. The bookstore will order it for them. So that is the need of the hour. We need more of those because clearly the retail chains don't know how to sell books. Um, uh, and for which publishers have lost out a lot, as have writers and readers. So that is the biggest challenge we face, I would say. Also, if the parents of little children aren't readers, our parents were all readers. Again, they had no choice, they had to read. They had Doordarshan. Before that, there was no Doordarshan either. So they had to read. So our parents were readers. That's how we became readers. Now it falls entirely to the school to inculcate the habit. Um, and I'm not a parent, so I don't know how well they're doing. But what we're doing now actively, we try to do storytelling sessions. And there are small book distributors who are interested in this. They take our authors to schools. So there's a whole different channel for schools where we go do little fairs. But that has to be, the penetration is not that deep. It is, I would say, limited to the metros or the tier 1 cities. We should find a way to go to tier 2 and tier 3 cities and find a way to get into government schools as well. There is Read India campaign, there are other projects, but I'm speaking strictly about, say, a Penguin, Harper, and we are much smaller, but I'm talking about us, corporate publishing houses.
What we were going to discuss next is reading being a community engagement. And it doesn't just stop with the schools, it's the parents, everything that surrounds a child. So this is what we were going to discuss next. Is my next question is, how can educators, parents, and institutions strike a balance between screen-based reading and traditional print reading to nurture deeper engagement with literature? So, Meenakshi, I'm going to direct this at you first from a publisher's perspective.
I think it's really, really hard. It's it's close to impossible because even a 2-year-old child is stuck to their phones. Why? Because the parents need a break. They need to feed the child, so they'll hand over their phone to them, which has also, I noticed, led to kids starting to speak very late because nobody is talking enough with them, so they haven't picked up a language. So that's where it starts. Reading comes much later. So how do we do that? Like whether they'll be that we are up against schools, very rich schools, who recommend that kids do their assignments on laptops. So then comprehension will be a very big challenge because they're not writing things down with they have to write things down to in order to remember or even mug up for exams. They're working on their laptops. Like how do we the change has to begin there, and only then will it percolate to the publishers who come in much like who are far along the too far along the chain actually. So we are what we're doing. Our children's publishing program, the imprint is called Red Panda. What we are now actively doing is more activity books. We are trying to do more picture books. We're also trying to buy. Again, with picture books, it's really sad, but I see that there's a bias in parents like, towards international books. But it's not like we don't have great writers of our own. We have amazing illustrators. We have wonderful children's writers. But when parents walk into a store, they prefer buying foreign international backlist writers. Um, and but they will pick. I noticed that they pick up a book where the illustration is amazing. And so there are publishers like Iktara, there's Puffin, who are doing a great job. We are also trying to do, we are trying, our priority right now is to do more picture books, activity books for children. And now we're getting into comics, which is actually a collaboration between the Pratilipi Comics team and Westland. We do the text, we develop the story, and they do the illustrations. And they are using a little bit of AI to do this, in the sense that they create the backdrop of like several scenes using AI, like the generic backdrops, but they hand draw the rest of it, the characters and all of that. But with the help of AI, I think it reduces the time of production quite a bit. And they are all royalty free because we are developing the stories. So it seems like a business model that might work for us. And the first few books that we've done have sold 3,000 copies in 6 months. So it seems like it'll work. But our plan is to build that and first catch them for the pictures. And once they like the pictures, we are hoping they will read longer texts.
I'm going to direct this at you, Paro, because we're just talking about children's books, and you've been writing children's books for 4 decades, as we said. So, what is your take on this, as someone who's actually been doing this for so long?
I don't completely agree with the first part of what Meenakshi said. Um, there is a huge movement by a lot of different people to have book fairs, book events. There's the Kukuruku Festival, which has now, I think, had 20 festivals. There's the Bukaru Festival, which is fantastic. There is the Neve Festival, which may be just in Bangalore, but they also open it up across the country with the Neve Reading Challenge, where it's a very highly curated reading list for different age groups. And everybody can, I mean, all children can participate in different age groups. I think there is a much greater awareness in schools of the need to read, and the need to have authors and illustrators and activities making that connection. There was a time when I first started in the 80s where I would be, literally begging schools, please invite me into your school. I'll come free, and I'll do an activity, and it's of great value. Now I get about 4 to 5 calls a week at least. Almost daily, there are some calls, and not just from the big urban cities. No, in fact, I've been to schools in Haldwani, in Hisar, uh, and I mean the Konkani language is also inviting people from across the country to to enhance their reading experience. So there is actually a lot. Yes, the big marquee festivals like the Jaipur Literature Festival, which did take some steps towards including children's literature, has post pandemic gone back to zero, which I don't understand. There is such a huge market and a captive market. There are booksellers who engage me to go to different schools. With the thing that they pre-sell 300 copies, and then I go and do an interaction. So that kind of thing doesn't happen in adult and general literature. So I think there is a lot happening, a lot more needs to happen. And certainly Meenakshi's is point about the languages is very heartening. I've recently written some in Hindi, originally in Hindi, and I've also written a story in Punjabi. I'm not finding a publisher for it. So I don't know that space, and that's a very different world. I used to go into schools and people didn't know who I was. I would ask them which were the authors they read, and as Meenakshi said, foreign authors would be rattled off. If I said Indian authors, do you know any? It would be Ruskin Pond and R.K. Narayanan. But that was often because they were part of the text. Now it's very different. Uh, I do have people coming up to me to say, "Aren't you Paro Anand? Didn't you write this book?" I in a restaurant one day in a hotel, I saw a young girl reading, and I always try and peep to see what are they reading. And I found to my complete delight that she was reading one of my books. So very thrilled, I went up to her and said, "That's my book." And she kind of snatched the book back to herself and said, "No, it's my book." I said, "No, it's your copy. I've written it." And she was just so excited. She made me wait there till she got her parents, and then we had a great discussion. So these are new things that are happening in the world of children's literature, and I'm excited and hopeful.
Well, this is so good to know. Clearly I don't know enough, but yeah, about the festivals that you said, the big festivals are you will only see Sudha Murthy and Ruskin Bond does not go anywhere. But yeah, that should change. Yeah.
Coming to Tashi, what do you think from a student's perspective? How can educators and parents and institutions strike that balance between, as we're talking about screen-based reading and the traditional print?
I believe that like striking a balance between based reading and traditional print is like an important challenge for educators, parents, and institutions in today's digitally driven world. Like the goal is to ensure that both forms of reading contribute to deeper engagement with like literature without diminishing the approaches of like of either of them. And I think the way that we can do this by would be at a school level through the curriculum design. Like educators can design curriculums which use both forms of reading strategically. Like we can have, for example, we might use printed traditional books for like in-depth study and for analyzation so that we can like improve our comprehension, while after that as a follow-up we can have like we can explore related content and like on related topics and books online digitally, which I think and like such a rotational approach, like instead of focusing solely on one method, can help like provide students with opportunities to engage with literature through both mediums. So I believe that like through the curriculum design is one way that we can address this.
Thank you, Tashi. Now, coming back to looking ahead, uh, how do you see reading habits evolving over the next decade? And what can we do now to ensure that future generations continue to value reading? Tashi, I'd like your thoughts because you belong to this generation.
Uh, um, as a student right now, like I see reading habits evolving, like how I see reading habits evolving on a decade. I think it solely depends on how we encourage reading right now in this age, because as technology advances and as we live in this digital world, we can already see how reading habits are diminishing, like especially among students and among young generation. But like as like I believe that if we take the right approaches right now, reading habits can continue to evolve with technology in a more positive way, with like as technology can provide more interactive elements, and can also, like how I mentioned before, like it can provide you with recommendations which cater to you with the use of AI. And as we all know, AI is being like integrated into almost everything, so why can it not be like as it already is, like it can be integrated to furthermore help students develop these such reading habits. And to ensure that future generations value reading, we can start by like first promoting like diverse literature, which I believe which represents different voices and experiences. And through these, like people are able to connect. Like when they have something to resonate with them, they become more interested. And this is what I believe can also contribute to like the development of reading habits. Thank you.
Thank you, Tashi. Meenakshi, I'm going to direct this at you now. How do you see reading habits evolving in the next decade?
So, Nana, your video got stuck for a bit. Could
Sorry,
you repeat your
I
question?
was directing the question at you as to how do you see reading habits evolving in the next decade, and what can we do now to prepare ourselves?
Yeah, I don't think physical books are going to go away anytime soon. Now, I agree with what Tashi said. One way of doing it is to use technology to say you read this book and now these are, if you liked this one, you'll like these 10 books. That's one way of doing it, to suggest based on consumer behavior. I think that might work because it's a impulse buy. Today Amazon, buying on Amazon or anywhere is all about impulse buying. So I think AI can be used to do that. um, and picture books, strictly we should find a way of not reading them. Parents or teachers should find a way of not reading them on Kindle or any other device, because how can you read a picture book on? So then those are some of the ways. In the next 10 years, I don't think books will go away. It'll be a mixed, I think people will use both. I don't think anyone will switch entirely to reading in digital formats, but it will more. So there will be, for instance, augmented reality is being used to create books, especially in Southeast Asia. So I think Indian publishing will also have to experiment a little bit and innovate a little bit to um, and closely work with. I think publishers, if I may admit that, are a little bit inward looking. So I think we should look towards the reader and try to read what they want and create something. It has to be a mix. You can't thrust books that the editor, likes down their throats. It has to be a mix. You give them what they like, and then you recommend something that you think they should be reading. So there has to be a more, how do I say it, sensible and integrated way of doing it for publishers, with schools, parents, and storytelling in India was always so tightly integrated with life itself. Everything is storytelling. Any interaction is storytelling. So I think we should I think publishers and writers, children's writers, translators, all of them are trying to bring it back. But we have to say this very clearly. We have to emphasize on this, that storytelling makes your child a better person, because you're um, just giving them what you want them to be in the form, in a more accessible, easily digestible form. So storytelling has to be like something very natural. And that's the way to go, I think. And one publisher can't do it alone. Everybody has to put their heads together. And through festivals, through school exhibitions, because book fairs in India, the big book fairs, Delhi, Patna, Lucknow, across Kerala, they're all very successful book fairs. There's no reason why people won't go for physical books in the next 10 years.
Thanks, Meenakshi. Your take on this?
So I think it is a question of what, as Meenakshi said, what is it that we are putting out there for children to read? And I'm not so fussed about the format. There is a beautiful format called, I think it's called Missed Call. Missed Call, though, I think that is the name of it, but I'm not sure of the name, where you could actually there was a number you could give a missed call, and you'd get a call back with a story narrated, a very beautifully narrated story. And so that was something available. It was such a democratic way of giving a story to a child. But I think it is what we need to have: every kind of story in every kind of format on every kind of platform. At the end of my sessions, I have, by the way, worked with over 3 lakh children. And after every session, I always ask children, what do you want me to write next? And their answers are nothing like, or very often not, what publishers are asking you to write. There is a dissonance between the gatekeepers of children's literature and what children want to read, and that dissonance needs to be bridged. This is very important. That's why I say the what is very important, and you need all kinds of books for all kinds of readers and non-readers. Um, in any background, there are children who want to read books which reflect them, resonate with them. There are those who want to read something completely different from their own lives. Um, and a mix of both. And let's also not forget that reading was always a bit of a exclusive activity. There were always readers and non-readers. So let's not get too worried about the fact that the reading habit is dying down. I think the question to ask is, how much are adults and parents reading?
Thank you.
No,
Because
and as a reader, we should, whether physical books survive or not, whether the ebooks or the it's storytelling that must survive, and it will, for sure, in whatever format.
thank you. We have got lots of questions coming in the chat. We have one question from the audience. What strategies do the panelists recommend for novice readers with limited access to digital reading platforms? What genres and formats of physical books are recommended for novice readers? Anyone?
I don't think I could ever recommend. I find it very hard to give a recommended reading list, again, because um, every child is so different. The books that my sister wanted to read, I didn't, and vice versa. So I think the more you read, the more you want to read. It's finding the book that fits your heart, which will make you a reader. That's what worked for me.
Anyone else would like to respond to this? Dashi or Meenakshi?
I can't see the question. Can you repeat it for me?
What strategies do the panelists recommend for novice readers with limited access to digital reading platforms? What genres and formats of physical books are recommended for novice readers?
I would say pick any book up. Actually, there are very beautiful magazines that come out from smaller publishers, independent publishers. For instance, Iktara brings out a magazine called Cycle, which is amazing. So if the Hindi reader can lay their hands on Cycle, they would find 10 different writers that they could keep track of, or you can go on to buy their books. That's one way of finding out. Schools have their recommended reading lists, libraries. Um, in Tamil Nadu and Kerala, for example, they have village libraries. So you can walk into them and find books. So, and what will like individual people, the tastes may be like wide, like very different. Someone might like a Ruskin one, but someone would just follow it, buy every single book of Paru's. So it's very different, and all of it should be made available to them, and it's their choice. Like there should be that autonomy that you pick whatever you read.
Tashi, there's a question for you. How do you balance reading with other forms of screen time, such as social media or online entertainment?
Thank you for the question. I think while like in this age where like social media is like an integral part of our life, especially from the younger generation, I find it a bit hard, honestly. Like honestly speaking, social media can be very distracting, and I also tend to really get diverted towards it. But like as I really enjoy reading, and I have a passion, like I am passionate about reading, it is something which I don't feel as a burden. So it is I feel like I do not really struggle in the sense like to prioritize reading because it is something I generally enjoy. So I generally tend towards doing. So although how I balance it is like while I do have my designated time for screen time, I also make sure that I am not like my whole day is not just full of screen time, but that I am also indulging in reading books and I'm not solely just focused on digital social media.
And Paro, there's a question for you. How has the digital age influenced your writing process? Have new tools and technologies changed the way you create content?
Well, I used to actually type on a old type of typewriter, which meant that every draft had to be typed from beginning to end. And because of that, it was very thorough. My editing through, because you edited every single word, every draft. Now there is a skimming, and I think that um, my self editing has been impacted by that. So now I've started actually printing out and doing a physical, so that is part of the writing process. Um, uh, I think referencing, finding reference, just now, the two books that I'm working on, both require quite a lot of research. And digital research is such a dream. I'm up in the mountains right now. Otherwise, I would have come to a grinding halt if I couldn't find the referencing the way I can um, because of the digital availability. Um, the what the other thing that has happened is that I was doing a podcast till fairly recently, and I had so many listens to it, 45,000 people hearing a book. Now obviously, if I've written a book and a physical book and selling it, 3,000 would be a pretty good sale. Certainly nowhere near 45,000. So I think there is a lot to be said to, as a writer, as a content creator, to try and do both.
Uh, there's another question come in. What about the role of the home?
Huge.
to anyone.
In my home, we had an hour where we as a family would sit down and read. To me, as I had mentioned earlier, it was a waste of time. I hated that time. But until that moment when I found the book, which I thought, wow, I love this book. I wish I could be this person. And then I realized that as a reader and as a writer, you can be anybody you want to be. You can do anything you want to if you read. So have books in the home. Have musical instruments if that's what you want to encourage. You've got to have the raw material before you can develop the skill.
Meenakshi, there's one question that's come in for you. How do you feel about using AI in the creation of comics? Do you think it helps in enhancing the creative process?
No, I said that earlier. It quickens the processes. What we don't want to rely entirely on AI. We don't want to do that as publishers. So what we do is we use AI sometimes to create generic backdrops. So the mountains, if they appear in 5 panels across 3 pages. So we will use AI to create that. But the characters, their actions, their clothing will all be hand drawn. So it does save us a lot of time. We don't want AI to pull illustrations and artwork from uh, every place, and it's not right. So, but AI is definitely helping us save time.
And we have another question here. Is there any possibility for the, the question has come from Meenakshi. With the increasing rise of self-publishing, how do you feel about the democratization writing and the impact it has on traditional publishing? That's an interesting question.
Will you repeat that, Sunena, again?
So with the increasing rise of self-publishing, how do you feel about the democratization writing and the impact it has on traditional publishing?
See, I'm all for democratization of reading and publishing, because our parent company does that, and I really believe um, in their motto that storytelling should be done across. One story should be taken across formats, and everyone has the right to tell a story. So I believe in that. With regard to self-publishing, I would say that it is such a vast space. Um, I don't think one is competing with the other for space. Um, my only problem with that is the quality of the books that are being published. I'll speak strictly about India, because I don't know much about what's happening outside. But a lot of the content is just vanity content. And it's not like they can't be lifted, but the kind of editorial team that works at a self-publishing firm in India, and the amount, it's not even about that. It's just that they have the volumes they do is too big for them to sit and spend time and do 3 rounds of edit to lift the text or to engage with the author and help them become better as writers. So they don't have that kind of bandwidth. They are just producing more and more books every month. But it's not necessarily bad. There is no, I don't think one is cannibalizing the other. They are still in two very separate spaces, because for self-published books to get into offline stores, that is still a challenge. You will find very few self-published books in a bookstore, but they'll all be available on Amazon and online stores. So I don't see it as a threat. No, and everyone has the right to exist.
One last question to you, Tashi, before we conclude. Is AI enhancing the creativity in the young generation?
Thank you for this question. As we all know, artificial intelligence, it is like able to like generate, it is able to mimic what us humans, like the thought process and our thought process, and is able to generate many creative output, like especially in terms of like stories and arts. And I believe that AI enhances the creativity in the young generation as well as also helping in diminishing it. Like when I say it enhances, like it can provide prompts and it can lead to ideas which can help youth like to further like enhance their creativity and expand on what AI has given them. But at the same time as we become more dependent and more reliant on it, it also in some way puts like a block to the creative, like a creative block, as many people just like they just directly tend to go to AI for the idea rather than to sit through the process and generate a creative output. So in this way, I feel like it helps in both enhancing creativity as well as diminishing it.
Thank you for that. We tried to address as many questions that came in, and for those that we were not able to address, please send them to us, and we'll make sure that we get the panelists to respond. I think I speak for everyone when I say that this webinar has been an enriching experience for all of us. It has given us a deeper understanding of how reading is evolving in the digital age, how technology can both challenge and enhance the way we engage with literature. We've explored innovative ways to foster love for reading, the balance between print and digital formats, and the importance of creating inclusive and engaging reading experiences. I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to our team members at Pallavan Learning Systems, Ritinjali and the Centre for Escalation of Peace for their efforts in organizing this webinar and ensuring a seamless experience. Please find the links in the chat box to connect with us or learn more about our work. A special thank you to our panelists for their illuminating insights, engaging perspectives, and thought-provoking discussion. Your contributions have truly enriched this conversation. And finally, a huge thank you to our audience. Your curiosity, thoughtful questions, and active participation have made this session even more meaningful. Once again, thank you for being here today. We hope you found this discussion as valuable as we have. Thank you.